All right, guys. What episode is this? We're up there already. 12 or 13, no? 12 for sure. 13, well, yeah. It could be 12 or it could be 13. I don't know. We'll find out. It's either 12 or 13, guys. All right. So, I tell you what, one of my favorite... Oh, yeah. Welcome to Real Estate Talk, Real Estate Podcast. Yeah. I always got to remember to say that. My name. All right, there we go. I'm a little tired, guys. I haven't slept well. I didn't sleep well last night. So yeah, one of our favorite podcasts that we had, because it's kind of like we did it almost at the beginning of the coronavirus thing, right? Where we had Richard on just when the shit started hitting the fan, and we kind of went through like different scenarios that could happen, and why they would happen and how they would happen, and man, and Richard and I are in a group chat there. That's I mean, everybody's like 5 years old on it, or at least we act 5 years old on it. But one of the things we do is bombard each other with news articles of everything that comes in. So, man, little by little, all the stuff that we talked about, every single thing about business owners, kind of fighting back and opening up anyway, about states kind of fighting back. We had that in Wisconsin, and in Texas, we had that salon, owner that went out and said, you know what, I'm not going to close down. They went and sent her to jail. She took the jail time. Then what? The governor rescued her?
The governor actually offered to pay her her fine, and I believe it was the attorney general of Texas actually went and got it, did whatever he had to do to get her out.
Right. And then Ted Cruz, which is the senator from Texas, went and got a haircut with her, which we also saw, in California, which basically is saying they're going to stay closed till like 2025. Elon Musk said, hey, listen, I'm going to open up. You want to arrest me? You could arrest me. They ended up backing off, which is interesting. And in Wisconsin, Richard, what exactly happened in Wisconsin? The Supreme Court basically said you're not obligated to stay, or they told them that you don't have the right for the stay-at-home orders. Is that basically what happened?
No, what happened was that the state's governor issued an executive order extending the shelter orders that he had previously put in place. And the Supreme Court struck down the extension of the shelter order, which basically terminated it as of the moment the court ruled.
Right, because another thing that happened, while we were, between that last podcast and this one, is that the Attorney General of the United States said, "Hey, we're starting to get dangerously close to I guess affecting our constitutional rights." So what it seems to me like, Richard, tell me if I'm understanding this correctly, okay? Because I'm not an attorney and not even close to one, okay? What I think happened was that in short term, like in a week or two, for the term of a week or two, it was kind of okay constitutionally because it was like kind of an emergency situation. But if you want to start extending it, then it becomes almost like an issue with the Constitution and our rights. Is that basically did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously a grand oversimplification, but it hits it hits the.
I don't know. Is that a compliment?
He said grand, man. That's pretty big.
Hey, fuck you, all right? Just in case.
Yeah, right.
Fuck you or thank you, whichever one you want to take. I don't know.
Look, governments at all levels, okay, state, local, federal, they have what's called police powers. Now, when we say police powers, we don't really mean, police officers with badges and cars with lights on. We mean this inherent authority to enact restrictions basically for the public good, okay? And so the way that they get to doing that is through various declarations of emergency, okay? So, if there is a sufficient emergency, the government can enact martial law. We put soldiers out on the streets, and then, there's curfews, and you absolutely can't go out, and, you may not be able to speak, and, who knows, right? So now the thing is that every encroachment on a constitutionally protected right has to pass what we call a scrutiny test. Okay. And so if we were in litigation about these things and somebody were to file a lawsuit saying, hey, the order to close my business is a constitutional overreach, right? We have to find an amendment, right? A constitutional right that is affected by an order to close your business. So
which are what? There has to be something.
Well,
correct?
I was about to say that. So if we could ask the audience, right? If we could say, hey, who knows what amendment we would travel under? What would we say was being violated if they tell you can't open your business? And I think it's the right to the pursuit of happiness, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Well, I think life and liberty.
Well, liberty for sure.
Liberty for sure. Life, I mean, you got to make a living.
No, I mean, again, semantics, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But probably the pursuit of happiness, because you can't argue you're not living, right? Like no one's really going to die because the business is closed.
Okay.
So, but again, we're digressing. Okay, we're digressing. But the point is, you pick an amendment under which you're going to travel, and then the judge, the court's obligation is to assess whether or not the restriction is reasonably tied to some prevailing public policy interest, such that the government's encroachment on that right can be justified. Okay, so in the immediate aftermath, as we discussed back then, all of these things are probably constitutionally permissible, and it would be an absolute waste of anyone's time to try and question that at that time, at a time when we don't have sufficient data, we don't know the scope of the disease, we know very little about how it affects people, we don't know how many people have it. I mean, there were so many unknowns that it would be a loser all day to mount that type of offensive.
But things done changed a little bit.
Right. Well, so what happens is that after 2 months, it's like, listen, if the objective was to flatten the curve, and the curve is more or less flattened. And by the way, it's not flattened in any place except New York. So if you take New York, whereas previously there was only a spike because of New York, now if you take New York out of the models, you'll see that the numbers are going up literally everywhere else. Now, does that justify another shutdown? No, because remember, the shutdown initially was not about preventing spread. It was about not overwhelming the health system. Okay.
Right, which everybody's reporting hospitals are at 50% capacity.
Right. Correct. And so again, so the more data we have, to suggest that many more people have been infected than we knew about. So, we may be a lot closer to a herd immunity than we previously thought, or that the mortality rate is not as bad as we previously thought, or our ability to handle it from an infrastructure perspective. Once these things start creating balance again, then it becomes more and more difficult for these restrictions to survive the kind of scrutiny we were just describing, right? The scales start to tip in the other direction, where people's needs to get out there and work, et cetera, outweigh.
Oh, we lost him. Yeah.
I think it's a good point. Actually, he's again, it's about that adult decision that has to be made, and that's kind of what he's saying is that scrutiny test is kind of that whole same thing. What were you going to say?
Yeah. It's kind of like what I'm understanding is that like at the beginning nobody knew what was going on. Now everybody kind of knows what's going on. You've almost picked a side, and it's crazy to say, but there is sides to this. There's the let's stay shut down forever. No life is worth, any dollar amount, which I agree on, but those people are not counting that there's going to be an effect in life.
Of course.
By every economic recession or depression or any collapse has brought in tons of deaths with suicides,
over 1,000%.
And domestic violence, child molestation, kids that are stuck,
substance abuse
Absolutely. Skyrockets, hunger skyrockets. There's a lot of kids. I mean, I have friends that are that are teachers and principals and everything, and how many kids are that there's a lot of kids that their only meals come from school.
Yeah,
they eat there. They eat breakfast, they eat lunch, they probably ask their friends for the leftovers, and they fill themselves up, and they don't eat to the next day. That's a reality. You know, they might eat a sandwich, an air sandwich, you know, when they get home or something like that, which, you know, 2 slices of bread, maybe some honey. You know, so those are lives that are affected. Those are lives that are affected, but they're not dying. So that's what the argument is to a lot of people. Like, well, no life is worth it. I know, but you know, you got to understand that. So how do we quantify? How do we compare suffering? Okay,
Right.
So
you don't ask the doctors is the thing. The problem is we're only listening to one set of data points, which is only the perspective of the doctors. There's a reason why doctors don't run the world. It's because they have a medical perspective. It's the same reason why attorneys don't run the world. They have a legal perspective, right? It's only when we blend all of these things together that we get an actual blended perspective so we can take and make an adult decision. If we're not asking the economist, if we're not asking the sociologist, if we're not asking everybody.
It's supposed to help you make the decision, not be the decision maker.
Absolutely.
It's supposed to, you know, and Richard will tell you, is he back on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Oh, okay. So, you know, Richard will tell you, hey, listen, I called Richard. Richard's been my attorney for 15 years. You know, I'll call him a lot of times and I want to hear what the worst case scenario is. All right, Rich, if I do this or if this goes wrong, what happens? He'll tell me every which way possible. And then I got to make a decision.
Sure.
Okay, well, this could happen, but this could also happen. And he'll tell you. And
by the way, did you guys lose me?
Yeah,
What
lose you.
was
Oh, shit, it's been minutes. Yeah. It's been minutes. Yeah. So I don't even know where you left off, but Richard, I mean, when you talk to, I mean, most of and you and I have had obviously conversations about, you know, your clients and you know, their train of thought as far as, you know, do they listen to you or do they not listen to you? I would, and I would, you know, as I remember correctly, you know, a lot of these successful businessmen, they do the same thing. They want to listen to your observation, your opinion on it, but they're going to do whatever the fuck they want at the end of the day, one way or the other. And that's kind of what I see. You're going to listen to the doctors, you're going to listen to the experts, but the president or the country has to make its own decision on moving forward. And that's where it gets tricky. And I understand that, you know, and now the argument has become, well, you can't value money over life. That's crazy. If this economy goes to crap the way it's going to go, if we don't open up, there's going to be way more deaths.
There's more life at stake. Absolutely.
Yeah, more life at stake.
I mean, I think it's also a perspective thing. I mean, doctors deal with sick people.
Yeah.
So they're used to when people don't listen to their advice. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's the opposite.
Yeah, they deal with people that are sick. So they say, hey, don't eat that. And then they get sick and they come and deal with the doctor. So all the doctor ever sees, just see the people that get sick.
Right? Are you talking to us or are you talking to somebody else?
He's talking to somebody else.
Is he? All right.
No worries. And I mean, it's the same thing with the attorneys. The attorneys typically see things when they go bad.
Yeah.
You know, they made the deal, but if they make 10 deals and 2 go bad, those are the ones that they see. Those are the ones that are in litigation. Yeah. So attorneys are very much more sensitive to, hey, how can it go wrong? And they know how it can go wrong because they've done that same deal 50 times and seen it gone wrong 5, 6, 7, 10 times.
Look, I think that, Richard, to kind of go back to your point, I'm not sure that's where you left off or not, but what I see happening next, before, when we spoke first, it was whether as a business owner, if I was in California, for example, and they're telling me to stay shut down for another 2 months, I'm going to tell me personally, if it was me, I would just open up. I'd rather die with my sword in my hand than have them just completely shut me down, lose my clientele, lose everything. I would do it responsibly, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, I would absolutely go after the pursuit of happiness thing, right? But now, what I think is going to happen now, we kind of covered that in our last podcast, right? But what I think is going to happen now is these restaurants that have been closed for 2 months, now you're telling them you're going to have to open up with more expenses because you're cleaning and all these exaggerated precautions that honestly I don't think make a difference. I think once you're in there and you're going to catch it. Just that's just me. You know, I'm not a doctor or anything, but you know, I think that restaurant owners are going to try to do that whole 50% operation thing, and they're going to realize, dude, I can't do it at 50%, and they're just going to go 100%. And then people are going to show up there and be like, how do you want me to eat with a mask? How do you want me to be inside here having drinks with a mask? Because that's the rule too, right? You're supposed to have a mask all the way until you eat or drink, Richard? Is that what I'm hearing?
I should know more about the specifics of the rule, but I don't. There was an article in the Herald today where some quotes from some people, was that it wasn't as weird as they thought. But yeah, it's my understanding that you need facial covering unless you're eating outside, and then obviously you can remove it to eat, but there's even like some time limits on how long you can be there, and I mean it's. Look, there's no avoiding these exercises. Okay.
No.
And there are no, believe it or not, okay, there's a lot of sensationalism on both sides.
Sure.
Okay. And just like the left sensationalizes, in my view, this problem. So does the right in minimizing it. Okay. You just can't go full bore right now. Okay, so the science just doesn't bear it out. It's just not the best idea. Period. End of story. And so you can't get around these baby steps back. I haven't heard any politician, local, state, or federal, saying that it's going to be 50% capacity forever. In fact, not even the published guidelines contemplate that. So I do think that there's an expectation from the government, and quite frankly, I don't think it's an unreasonable expectation that people comply with the guidelines to the extent possible, and unfortunately, it's going to take a little bit of this, people doing things that they don't necessarily want to do, for a time, There's a time after which, like everything else, like the shelter orders, there's a time after which the restriction is no longer reasonable. But that's not today. It's just not today. So, it's like everything else. The 50% capacity, yeah, that's going to get old. It's not old yet.
That's where Richard kind of left off, was he was talking about the idea that as things go along and more things are kind of skewing to the side of it, no longer being legal for them to keep it shut down.
Right. Yeah.
There's more weight on the other side of the scale to say, hey, you're going to start losing some of these cases now, because the science doesn't bear out being shut down entirely, impinging on people's constitutional rights. I think that's where you were before, Richard.
Yeah, exactly. And on this point also of the heightened sanitation measures and everything else, it's like, look, it's another phenomenon. We were talking about the group chats that we're in, and I have one where, it's my family and my extended family. Okay, and Jesus knows a lot of these characters.
Oh boy, do I!
They're wildly
colorful.
Some of them are wildly wealthy, and some of them are wildly Republican, and then there are some that are gay and married to other men, and they adopt these very liberal positions on everything, and then there's a friend of the family who's in there. He runs a modeling agency. He's gay, and these guys are very progressive, right? And so it's an interesting mix in there. But what's funny is that when this started, and by the way, one of the guys that happens to be gay, and he's one of the greatest humans on earth. I love this guy, brilliant guy. His name's Jerry. He's a doctor.
I wish we could say his husband's name, because it adds a little bit of humor to it. But
but let's not.
No, I know.
So the guy, he's a doctor, and he's on the front lines in New York. So he's obviously seeing the worst case scenario. Like, he's seeing the refrigerated truck holding bodies. I went to an emergency room here. There was nobody there. So, everything is like it's kind of like, your environment. So, he was maximum alarmist. Okay. And he's a doctor. So, he's talking shelter, and shelter and tough shit. And like, there's no consideration for anything else. And like, the economy, you're a moron, just shelter. And then there's a lot of women in this chat room who, by the way, all have an incredibly exaggerated sense of like their own worth. Right. So it's like the self-preservation is incredible. Like, they're terrified. They want to say it's about old people and all that. They're terrified for themselves. So number one, they're happy to quarantine because their houses are better than Disney World. OK, and I've said as much. And by the way, they quarantined with their nanny. okay, with their nannies and like with the
Well,
clean
and the
people, like, literally.
can I talk about the picture you sent the other day of where they were quarantining?
Yeah, on the yachts. So they all take their yachts out. This true story. They all take their yachts out, and they're at the sandbar, and like all the yachts are distanced. They won't even get near each other, right? And so, but in the same group of people at the beginning, it was all about like how the science requires the sheltering. Period. End of story. And then like the concepts of the vaccine and the concepts of the therapies, and as more and more like information comes out, like, you know, these people were all about vaccines. And then I said to them, let me ask you guys a question. How many of you get the flu vaccine? And it was like 40% of the people in there got the flu vaccine. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like, you guys don't even get the flu vaccine. So it's like, you guys talk about the vaccine. You don't even get the flu vaccine, right? That's number one. And by the way, Cindy, my wife, got the flu vaccine last year and the flu.
Yep.
And the flu. Because that's the way vaccines work. They're strain specific, right? And if you get it, and by the way, COVID-19 has already mutated. And so everyone's hero, Dr. Anthony Fauci, testified himself last week on Tuesday. The world went crazy that a vaccine may not even be effective. So I said to them the other day, I said, hey, guys, you see Fauci's testimony? Here's a link. And they were like, oh, yeah, we heard it. And I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. States are reopening. The curve has been flattened, especially in New York. Vaccines may not even be effective. When, if ever, will you guys come out? And then they were like, well, the doctor chimes in. He says, well, it's going to be a very personal choice for everyone because, you know, me personally, I'm supposed to get on a plane in July, but I don't know if I can bring myself to do it. And other people were chiming in, oh, my God, I can't go to a restaurant now because I'm nauseated. And I'm like, you see, you people only care about science when it's good for you, because you're telling me you want to shut me down based on science, but science won't bring you out of your house, right? Now it's a personal choice. So listen, that exact choice is the choice you got to give people. You got to let people open. You got to let them decide if they're going to get back to work or not, because unfortunately, Anthony Fauci himself could come out right now and say, hey, there's no more COVID. We eradicated it. And half the country won't believe him. They're not coming out. They're staying inside anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like reopening in and of itself doesn't bring people back.
Right. And until what point is you have the right, just like I have the right. Car accidents are way more dangerous than the COVID right now, statistically. This is not just me making it up, right? So, but we still have the right to go out there and drive. Okay. Alcohol and driving kills a lot more people, right? So, and I have the right to do that. I have the right to do whatever the fuck I want with my own body. At what point does you see what that's where I start thinking? I'm assuming, and everything I'm saying is with a question mark, Richard, right? That's to the point where if I want to go out there and put myself in danger, that's my human right, constitutional right to be able to do so, right? As long as I don't put anybody else in danger. And that leads me to the next thing, right? The mask. Okay. So at what point is that going to start becoming an issue? Like, I always have to have a mask on me at all times, all day, for how long, right? So if I want to go to a supermarket, right, and I don't have a mask on me for whatever reason, okay, like I have to, and at what point does that mask become unhealthy? Right? So walking around with a mask and breathing that stuff all day, and that, so at what point is that going to become, you know, because I remember when it first came out, there's literally videos saying from Fauci saying that's not going to do anything. Now all of a sudden they had some back end meetings and all of a sudden it's mandatory, right? So man, how long? What's the rights on that?
Let me address those 2 points, and then unfortunately I'm going to have to jump because I'm seeing my boss over here. Look, it's two. Number one, the general principle is it's more of the same, Jesus. For now, everyone's going to have to kind of put up with it because there just isn't enough time passed or crisis alleviation to suggest that it's wholly unnecessary. That's number one. Number two, for all the reasons you indicate, enforcement, people having it, blah, 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 et cetera, the government itself is not going to be imposing the mask restriction for very long. In fact, in the county already, in Miami-Dade County, they did away with the requirement of having masks on in county parks. Okay, but you have to be able to distinguish between the government as an actor, state, local, or federal, and private enterprise.
A park and Home Depot, basically.
Publix, Lowe's, these people, man, they can say, hey, we're going to require masks, and if you don't want to wear a mask, you're not going to go there. Okay, and so by the way, I'm going to be the first to point out some devil's advocate arguments here. Okay, they make you wear clothes. Okay, so the absolute
seatbelts.
logic notion,
They make you wear seatbelts, yeah.
like the absolute logic notion doesn't work for either side. Okay?
You just broke my heart right now, man. You just broke my heart.
You can't say it's like, oh, they're making me wear a shirt, but so somehow a shirt doesn't violate your rights, but the mask does. No, over time, it will be clear, perhaps, that the science doesn't bear it out, especially since we can't get people to have clean masks all the time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there will be a time for that. But, unfortunately for now, and by the way, private enterprise can decide forever, as stupid as they are, and so you may not have to, let's say Apple says forever, you have to be in our stores with a mask. And so, listen, it's going to get to the point that somebody like Apple can afford to do that. What are you going to do? No longer have a fucking iPhone? Give me a break. No? So It's like the only time you're going to have a mask is when you need to get an iPhone. You're going to send your wife into Apple. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
But whoever's getting you an iPhone is going to go wear a fucking mask. So it's like that's the thing. Private enterprise and government acting is two different things. I think the mask quote requirement will go away. I think it will remain. I think many businesses, the more progressive the business, the more likely you are to see that type of requirement. Either way, and by the way, the Fauci video is the last thing I'll address. I personally think that they initially were saying that because there were no masks. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but there's like a bazillion, like the largest growing businesses in America right now are like sanitizer maker, mask, gloves. Like all of a sudden, everyone's in that fucking business. Right. I don't know how many phone calls I've gotten in the past 3 days of contacts that I have that are ready to load me with military grade PPE because now everybody sells PPE. So, now that you can get masks everywhere, it's okay to tell people, well, fuck, if you have it, wear it. You know what I mean? Because it arguably prevents particles. When you couldn't fucking find a mask, when not even the president of the United States could find a fucking mask, you had to send everybody's hero out to say, no, don't wear a mask or that, because then, you create availability for others. But similarly, the science could change, right? Like they took the position out that it lets in less particulates. Okay, so, maybe that wasn't out at the time, or they didn't know that it was transmitted in water droplets. So, you sneeze, they didn't know at first. In fact, the WHO said you couldn't even transmit it between people. So, as the science progressed, now they know if I sneeze on you, you can get it. If I have a mask, I'm arguably projecting less snot, right? So, these evolutions are going to take place. Some are going to be good for people that think like you and I do. Some of them are going to be more painful, and we just got to kind of see how it goes.
Yeah. Well, let me just toss this out there as maybe to make everybody feel.
And by the way, guys, listen, I appreciate you always for having me on. Thank you, bro. Be good.
Later.
Take care. I was in Home Depot this past week up in the middle part of the state. I won't say any names, so I don't want to get any people in Home Depot in trouble. I was not alone in not wearing a mask.
Really?
And it was wonderful. They let me in. They smiled. There were other people in there. Some had masks. Some didn't. Some had masks on their little pet dogs in their purse.
I had a buddy of mine told me that at Dick's Sporting Goods, he walks in and they say, hey, do you, they hand him a mask and some hand sanitizer. And he says, do I have to wear it? Says the guy paused and says, well, we prefer that you wear it. He goes, okay, thank you. Walked out and didn't put the mask on. You know what I mean? So, it's a weird, obviously a weird situation. I have been holding strong so far. I have not yet to wear a mask. I put one glove on the other day because I saw myself in the situation where I had to wear a mask. I was able to talk my way out of it. They gave me a glove. They gave me gloves. They gave me a mask. I put one glove on, and then I realized, holy shit, I think I could talk my way out of this. And while I had one glove on, I Michael Jackson my way out of having to wear a mask. I was going to say, were you doing a Michael Jackson impersonation? Is that what you were shooting for? But I don't know how long I could hold on for. I really don't know. I don't know. Do I have to go to Home Depot soon? Probably. Do I have to jump on a flight soon? probably.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think I could hold on forever, but as of now, man, you know, I'm holding strong, because I do see it. I do see it, not because I'm some hard-headed crazy old guy or whatever. It's just because I have the right to wear a mask or not wear a mask. I have the right, if I'm walking into a place, how does me not wearing a mask affect your mask, right? So you have a mask, you have gloves, and you have one of those fancy face shields that I've been seeing too, right?
Oh yeah.
How does, you could walk in there with a bubble, in there with a bubble. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
Wear your
How does
hazmats,
if you're in a bubble, how does it affect your bubble? If I'm not in a bubble, you know what I mean? So
wear your hazmat suit, 100%. Take and cover yourself in Purell. Wear lead-lined underwear. Whatever you feel like you need to do.
Yeah.
The reality of it is, I was watching this happen for a while, because I don't know about you, but like I don't remember from 20 years ago people using a lot of hand sanitizer.
It's bad for you.
And we become like this germaphobe society.
It's bad
I don't get.
I
when
tell
this
Ariel
happened.
all the time. I tell Ariel all the time, like, you're killing your good germ, because you have some good germs, good bacteria on your hands, and you're killing it, which is gonna have you defenseless. So when you don't have the soap, he usually looks at me and he goes, yeah, okay, and then he just puts it on. So what are you gonna, it's we're making ourselves unhealthier. And I don't know the data on it, but it doesn't seem to me like the mask, you're inhaling, you're exhaling and inhaling, and you're supposed to do that up in the open and get fresh air and everything like that. I can't imagine that something's not going to come out,
because what they're basically saying is you're putting other people's lives at risk because of your selfish behavior. This is the argument that was made for the lady in Texas.
Yeah.
And if the data bears that out, I suppose it's like not drinking and driving.
Yeah.
If what you're doing with yourself is going to now affect other people. So there's potentially an argument there. The thing is this, the science isn't actually there to say that. They're speculating. They think the science is there. And because they think the science is there, they are now able to reach into your life and make you do things, make you the puppet on the strings.
Yeah.
And so, I think and you know what? I think there should be that reaction. We are Americans, and it is in our nature historically always to rebel against being told what to do. Oh, you're going to tax the tea? Okay, let's fight a war about this.
Yeah.
We are a country that was founded on the idea of not letting government control us. We had come from Europe. Most of us, when the revolution was fought, most of the people here had come from Europe, and they had come under the seen government oppression firsthand, where they come into your house, they grab you, they throw you in jail, and nobody ever hears from you again.
That's been so long already, people forget about it.
Well, we're so desensitized to this. I mean, I was just thinking along the lines of gratitude. I'm getting ready to take and do something else for another place. And the idea of gratitude. And one of the best things that I found to do is at the end of the day, just write down thank you and write everything you can think of from that day. All the little things. My car started this morning. My father used to have to take and push the gas all the way down in the car to preset the automatic choke on the car, which was high-tech technology at the time.
Yeah.
Now you turn the key, like it always starts.
If that car doesn't turn on, you're like I can't remember the last time I pressed the car thing and it doesn't turn on.
The other day,
10 years maybe.
I flew when I had to do a series. I was doing a whole week in Pensacola, up through there through the Panhandle, teaching classes, right? And I go to get on my morning flight, and my iPhone won't start. Nothing. It is a paperweight.
Wow.
All of my hotel information is in there. And I'm like, what a spoiled brat I am.
Yeah.
That I am so dependent.
If I don't have a computer, I can't do anything.
And I'm mad. I'm furious that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how easily I take for granted all the good things that I have.
Yeah.
So I mean, this does, what's the technical term for it? Suck.
Yeah.
It does suck a lot. I do like, I got that when I was up in the middle of the state, I got to go sit down at a restaurant and have a meal. And
That's pretty awesome. I can't wait for that.
I enjoyed it so much.
I think I'm going to do it this weekend, right? This weekend, everything opens up tomorrow?
Yesterday.
No.
Yesterday was
I think Miami-Dade, for whatever reason, is tomorrow. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know.
Well, I'm waiting for the gyms to reopen, man. I mean, I want to get on an elliptical and just go for days.
Yeah.
See what happens. Let's see.
I'll leave it with this. In summary, I think the way I see things is, I think I sent it to you the other day, the meme. You got half of the picture. There was two pictures. One picture is soldiers running out of their ships into Normandy into the beaches, facing certain death. Okay. And then it shows another picture of somebody hiding with a mask behind something, a wall or a seat or something like that, saying, this is our Americans today facing 0.005% mortality rate.
Yep.
Big difference. So, all right, guys, a little bit of an update on what's going on. And thank you very much. And by the way, questions or comments,
add them to the comments on either YouTube or in Instagram, wherever you're seeing it. And be happy to get back to you on whatever you come up with. Happy to help in any way we can.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you. Leo, Ariel, anything else? We're good? All right, guys. Thank you.